Let me ask you something. Have you ever walked into a room and felt like people respect you, but the second you leave, they start laughing behind your back? Or maybe you've tried to be kind, understanding, reasonable, only to be ignored, walked on, or taken advantage of. Yeah, we've all been there. Modern life rewards charm, but punishes weakness. And power, it doesn't care about your good intentions. That's where Machiavelli comes in. Because he understood something most people still don't. You don't need to be loved. You don't even need to be liked. But if you're hated, you're done. So how do you walk the razor's edge? How do you gain respect, maybe even fear, without ever becoming someone they want to see fall? This isn't just strategy. It's survival. In the office, in politics, in relationships, even in family. Stick with this till the end, because by the time we're done, you won't just understand the game. You'll know how to win it. And if that sounds like you, then welcome. You've just found your tribe of thinkers. Let's decode Machiavelli's rule before you become someone else's puppet. Would you rather be liked or taken seriously? Let's be honest. Most people are obsessed with being liked. We say yes when we mean no. We apologize when we didn't even do anything wrong. We shrink ourselves so no one feels uncomfortable around us. And what do we get in return? Ignored, overlooked, or worse, manipulated. Now here's where Machiavelli kicks in like a cold splash of reality. It is much safer to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. Notice he didn't say hate, he said fear with respect. There's a difference. In the modern world, fear doesn't mean slamming doors or barking orders. It means boundaries, standards, an aura that says, don't mess with me because I know who I am. Think about the people you admire most. Not because they're nice, but because they're unshakable. They walk into a room and things change. People listen when they speak. They don't need to raise their voice because their presence already speaks louder than words. That's not love. That's not fear in the traditional sense. That's respect laced with tension, and it's magnetic. But here's the trap. If you chase being loved too hard, you'll never be respected, because people start to think if they need my approval that badly, they probably don't deserve it. Power doesn't chase. Power attracts. So ask yourself, are you secretly trying to be loved? Or are you building something deeper? Something that commands respect. They feared him, they obeyed him, but the second they hated him, they destroyed him. Let's be clear. Fear can earn you control, but hatred breeds revenge. Machiavelli understood this. He studied rulers who conquered kingdoms only to be torn apart by their own people. Why? Because they crossed a line. A wise prince should build on fear, but never allow it to turn into hatred. You can pressure people. You can intimidate them a little, but the moment they want to see you fall, you're already halfway buried. Look at modern examples. Powerful CEOs, politicians, even celebrities. They rise on confidence and dominance. But when they become arrogant, cruel, disconnected, the crowd flips, the media attacks, and suddenly the throne becomes a guillotine. People will tolerate control, but they will not tolerate cruelty. Even in your personal life, you can be firm, assertive, even a little intimidating. But if your energy turns cold, transactional, or self-serving, you stop being someone to follow and start being someone to overthrow. Machiavelli's brilliance wasn't just about gaining power, it was about keeping it by knowing where the invisible line is drawn. So here's your takeaway. Be strategic, be firm, be clear, but never let your ambition harden into contempt, because no one forgets how you made them feel, especially when they hated you for it. And if you don't believe that, just ask history. You don't need to yell. You don't need to threaten. You just need to become the one they don't want to disappoint. Here's the uncomfortable truth no one tells you. You don't need to be the smartest. You don't need to be the loudest. You don't even need to be the most qualified. You just need to command presence. And presence is Machiavellian gold. Now, let's be clear. Presence doesn't come from aggression. It comes from clarity. Clarity in your tone. Clarity in your boundaries. Clarity in how little you're willing to tolerate. Think of someone who walks into a room and doesn't need to prove anything. They speak slowly. They listen more than they talk. They say no without explaining themselves. You instantly feel it. This person respects themselves, so I better respect them too. That's power without shouting. That's fear without cruelty. That's leadership without begging to be followed. Machiavelli didn't want tyrants. He wanted effective rulers, people who didn't need love, didn't chase approval, but also didn't create enemies out of ego. The wise leader is feared like a storm, but remembered like calm after it. Here's the modern takeaway. Say less, mean more. Be kind, but never soft. Let them admire your strength, not your need to be seen, because at the end of the day, you don't want them to love you. You want them to respect the silence when you leave the room. Nice guys finish last, not because they're good, but because they're afraid to be real. Let's rip the Band-Aid off. Most people think being nice is a virtue, but often it's a survival strategy. One born out of fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of standing alone. And Machiavelli saw right through that. The man who tries to please everyone ends up pleasing no one, least of all himself. Now, let's bring this into your world. Ever avoided telling the truth because it might upset someone? Ever bent over backwards to help someone who wouldn't lift a finger for you? Ever stayed silent in a meeting, a relationship, or a friendship just to keep the peace? That's not kindness. That's submission dressed as politeness. Let's be real. Nice people often get passed over. They get interrupted. They get disrespected, and then wonder why no one takes them seriously. Because niceness isn't power. Respect is. Here's a hard truth. The world doesn't reward softness. It rewards clarity. It rewards people who can say no without flinching. People who choose being respected over being liked. And if you're thinking, but I don't want to be cold or cruel, good. You don't have to be. You just have to stop apologizing for existing. Being feared doesn't mean being mean. It means people don't want to lose you. It means they know crossing you comes with consequences. It means your presence carries weight. And guess what? The most powerful people, they're not the loudest. They're the ones who walk away and leave others wondering, did I just mess up? That's power. That's Machiavellian. That's real. You don't need to be the hero. You just need to survive long enough to outlast the fools. Here's what Machiavelli understood better than anyone. The world is not ruled by justice. It's ruled by perception. Power doesn't always go to the kind, the honest, or the moral. It goes to those who understand the game and have the courage to play it without losing their soul. And that's the real mastery. To be respected without becoming a tyrant. To be feared without being hated. To hold power without letting power hold you. This doesn't mean you become manipulative. It means you become aware. Aware of how people react. Aware of how influence works. Aware of the unspoken rules no one teaches you, but everyone lives by. You learn to listen when others talk too much. You learn to hold silence like a weapon. You learn when to be kind, and when kindness is just another form of weakness. This is the edge Machiavelli walked, not as a villain, but as a realist, because he saw the world not as we wish it were, but as it really is. And if you want to rise in business, in politics, in life, you don't need to betray who you are, but you do need to stop apologizing for becoming who you were meant to be. Be respected, be feared, but never hated. That's not just advice. That's your armor. If you made it this far, you're not average. You're part of the tribe that sees the world for what it is and still chooses to play it like a master. So join us, subscribe, because this isn't just content, it's your psychological toolkit for power. And trust me, the ones who laugh at Machiavelli usually end up working for someone who didn't. See you in the next one, strategist.